Hello, everyone. So it's been a full week, and this is the end of it, so this is the wrapping up. We'll keep this kind of short, but we'll not skip over it because we think it's important to do it. So the thing I wanted to say to you is when, I think, Michèle, you asked me, would I be a part of this? And on this meeting, this Keystone meeting on diversity, I said yes. I immediately said yes. I said, sure, I'll do it. I thought a Keystone meeting in Africa on diversity. Genetics is all about diversity. What could be more wonderful? So I said yes, and then I thought, oh, what have I done? Because it turned out it had to be about humans and animals, it had to be about Africa and the rest of the world, about diagnosis, detection, treatment, prevention, genetic modification, this entire hodgepodge of things. And I must confess, I wasn't sure. We put together, I think, a program with a lot of really engaging speakers, and I thought Alison, who just did, kind of wrapped it up beautifully. But I still wasn't sure whether it was going to work, because we had packed too much into this, I thought. But now I'm sitting here, I think, yeah. Somehow, I still can't quite explain it, but I think it did work. Because ultimately, we all were exposed to things that we don't think about every day. I was exposed to a lot of things that I don't think about every day. I learned a lot about what is happening in the animal world. I kept asking stupid questions, I know, and I may have irritated all of you. But it was because I got so engaged in this, and I think a lot of you did too. So for me, it's been a very good meeting. I told you, I can't tell you what the state of the field is. I think there are enormous development is moving really rapidly on all fronts: diagnosis, detection, modification, selected breeding, the whole bioethics of it. Everything is moving. Where is it heading? We don't know. It's forwards, that's for sure. And I think the last bit was especially important because it seems that the discussion is more about what we want to do. It's much more about what we want to do than about what we can do. Whereas so far, up to now, it's always been about, can we do it? But that seems to have gone. It seems like in genetics, genomics, species, improvement, preventing and treating diseases, I don't think there's anything we cannot do. So that's where this is heading. And I thought it was particularly fitting that Alison ended it on this topic of, do we want it? How do we want it? Why do we want it? What is it we want? That, I think, is the challenge for the years ahead. So I'm going to give it to Michèle. We've been friends for a long time. We don't see each other very much. But if I have to say, the one thing that I enjoyed, one of the things I really enjoyed was meeting you again. And you're such a wonderful person, so it's been fantastic to work with you. Here we go.
Han, thank you so much for those comments, and also to say that we are sorely missing our partner in this venture, and that is Appolinaire Djikeng. And he really played such an important role in introducing us as human geneticists to the animal genetics community. And I think one of the things we worried about a lot was whether we would get a balance. And I think, Han, that we've achieved that. I think we've had a lot of animal genetics together with the human that we're more familiar with. And I think, my biggest learning curve here has been really to understand the animal breeding field and just the tremendous advances that have been made, and understanding those inflection points which have really changed the field and made it possible to do so many things, and that things can be tried out on animals which you don't necessarily want to think about or try out on humans. So I've been thinking about some of the highlights of the meeting for me, and I thought I would maybe just talk about them. There are essentially 4 that I want to mention. So one was really this awareness of the animal breeding and the objectives of animal breeding, which is really not only now increased productivity, but also looking at resilience, looking at sustainability, and looking at the environmental footprint, because I think we sometimes forget that it's moved and it's not all about production, and I think that's really important. And I think being here in Africa, I've also seen an awareness of the fact that whatever is good in another environment in the north may not necessarily be here, and that we really need to think about breeding to be fit for purpose in the environment in which the work is being done. So I think, it really was nice for me to see that this was something that is very much on the agenda. So then the second one was learning more about evolutionary processes. And I didn't expect that I would come to a meeting like this to do so, but I have, and especially thinking about duplications and sort of understanding how they really have shaped our genomes, and we haven't really adequately investigated that in both humans and animals. And then also the role of selection. So I think we had some fabulous talks about dengue fever, about Lassa fever, and so on, and I think that was really interesting to me. And then also understanding how that might have influenced other traits inadvertently, like lipid metabolism. And, so I think there's so many things that have been shaped by pathogens in our environment that have really contributed to our genetic diversity. And then another highlight was the young researchers and their enthusiasm, the fact that so many of them were highly articulate in making us understand why their work was important. So I just would like to thank all the young people, and can we give them a collective hand? So I think we've managed to distill from this quite a few unifying themes. And again, I have a few that I want to mention, because I think there's no question that a unifying theme here has been the technology that we use to generate data, and also the way in which we interpret variations, and the fact that we're still a long way in really understanding the full relationship between genetic variation and phenotype, and realizing that sometimes there are lots of other things in between, like the environment tweaking the effect that we see. But I think we all are interested in the biological insights that we may gain from the variation that we see. But I think what was really fun was looking at quantitative traits, because that's something that's very important in animal breeding, but also, of course, in human health. And I think we have to have a quote for this meeting, and I'd like to attribute this quote to John. And the quote is, "Polygenic risk scores live or die by their heritability." And I think that was quite an interesting insight that you've given us there, and I think for me that's going to stick, in terms of how we go forward. And then the last unifying theme, I think, is, of course, infectious diseases and zoonoses. And I think that's a real area where our two communities need to work together more closely. So thank you again to all the wonderful speakers, really the time that you've put into thinking about how you can really make your talks relevant, I think is truly commendable. And I think to the participants, without your questions, this would not have been a meeting that was so much fun, because we got to get into your heads a little bit too. And I think that is what the Keystone Symposia does, is it gives you space to breathe and space to talk. And I think that has been hugely important. It's really been a fabulous experience for me, and I hope for all of you. Thank you.